Reason 11. The 2012 Olympics logo says Zion. Even more diabolical is the final Olympian ritual, which will return home to London on the ley lines of old monoliths. The Greek Olympians Hesta, Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Ares, Demeter, Hermes, Poseidon, Athena, Zeus, Artemis, and Apollo were their chief gods, most of them bloodthirsty titans, giants, Nephilim. Not many will see this all coming, only a few will escape. Disbelievers block their own way. We sent men, women, and even pure ones to them to persuade them that there were multiple heavens and that they were caught up in the lower dimensions, deceived by the stars they were, and they would not listen. They would not forsake the partners they had subscribed with the Most High, imagining them to be in favor of their growth, in spite that gods gave them little and blocked the path of ascension. Thus, there was a silence of man and woman's great deeds in heaven. There was little to harvest. Truly, the people were not guided, trading paper for life. Then the veil began to lift, and once again man and woman recognized each other as the only source of harmony. We were all together then, man and woman, shaping and reforming the new world. Truly, our work is not in vain. Just as the trees, we are numerous and patient, as we provide man and woman their substance, just as we all must live. We are currently positioned in a place Kabbalistically known as Malkuth, which means foundation. This is why the gods often say earth is their footstool. Indeed, some of the spirit energies were so large, it is true that earth could be, in fact, used as a footstool by them. Malkuth consists of various life forms with limited senses. Thus, they are vibrating at a lower frequency in order to form something as solid as a foundation. To make this easier to understand, a rock is actually in motion, although it is vibrating so slow it's heavy, hard, and what appears to be immovable, although it is just moving so slow you do not have time to see its movement. The more senses we lose, the more we become like a rock, which means our emotional movement and the idea of things lessen as we descend. This is also the secret to why gargoyles, the Sumerian stone cherubs, the Sphinx, and various other stone figures have survived from antiquity and are all known to be in fact alive and resonating a certain type of energy. Lower life forms are also on a low vibration like rock, thus they at times inhabit stones. These figures are kept around for protection against other entities by magicians. Reason 12. Pictured above are statues that have been passed from magician to magician. As you see here, J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter series, in possession of the same gargoyle John Dee, a well-known magician, used to keep in his possession. The spirit lives within the stone. The strength of stone is obvious by its durability. An adept is familiar with all types of stone and the elemental gnomes who have wisdom of earth and fashioning things out of the earth. Here are just a few buildings that are positioned on major ley lines. The ley lines have been known since ancient times, discovered by dowsing and also witnessing how things grow in certain areas. A spiraling tree is often on a ley line. Below you see the earth grid of major ley lines, which you will find structures built upon. The smaller ley lines are generally not mapped in such detail. There were also those who just signed up for the pantheism, since the ladder is ascending and descending. They naturally gravitated towards the negative. The lower dimensional beings, which also make up the foundation we stand on, had its way with them while their channel was open, and they spoke whatever message would bring more energy and treasure to their coffers. They were led by distortion. Man and woman involved themselves with beings that possessed and incarnated into their own human bodies. Some of these beings either never had a vocal box or are no longer in possession of one, nor a corporeal body to operate on the third physical plane. Numerous they are, and they could not be counted, as if opening a sealed vault of misshaped things that spawn against themselves in what would seem like an instant. Pandora's box, tricks of the god Pan, lord of panic and pandemic. Those who were more interested in the fast route, imagining that spiritual work was a road to riches, would inherit the curse of Ammon. Ammon, one of the first names given to the planet Jupiter, and is in fact a very active Egyptian god. Jupiter is one of the largest planets in this system. From here, we will refer to Jupiter or Ammon as we keep track of this being. Even the Bible scripture gives a clue when it says, "Thou canst serve both God and Mammon." Unfortunately, it didn't leave more detailed information. The Am in Ammon is where the Am in America comes from, and the great I Am. You will find an advanced, intelligent amphibian called Onaz, the fish god, amongst them, along with its offspring such as Dagon. They crossed into our world long ago under the Sumerian name Ea, pronounced Ea, Lord and King of the Sea. One of the greatest questions that will ultimately come to mind is, are the actual planets themselves doing this, or are these malevolent beings with various powers who have fooled man into believing they are the planets? To answer that, we will have to consider a few things. The planets themselves are in a fixed movement, everything interacting together. I personally know that there are many more planets in our immediate system, and that most know nothing of such as Vulcan. The heaviest spiritual involvement from these satellites seems to come from asteroids like Venus and Ceres, along with what we call meteorites, falling stars, and comets that seem to cause many problems. There are also hollowed artificial satellites such as our moon, Sin, and Phobos, which are bases of some sort. Think of this also, the Bible is supposed to be a holy book, and in the end you find a passage that says something like, "Woe to the one who adds or takes away from what is written in this book. We will add to him the plagues of this book and take away his name from the book of life." There's obviously a faction that cares nothing about this warning, because every time a new edition to the Bible comes out, there are serious changes. People need to start seeing that the ones who are changing it care nothing for the curses, because they are none, and the book itself has stories borrowed from everywhere. Such was the way of these people. The negative forces are infamous for being, if a being says, "I am Ammon, I am Jupiter, planet, you know, as the biggest." I find this no different from a man who says, "I am the son of the sun, and because of that I have leave to destroy everything in my path." Man has been notorious for blindly following these possessed, deluded traders who are blurred by their own desire to iconoclast themselves in the mold of time and usurp the throne of the Great One, which is unreachable and immeasurable. Such a man can charge into battle with great strength, imagining he will vanquish his foes, and then, the next thing, he wakes in evil Elysium, Jehonan, for such foolish thoughts. Everything material will pass away at some point, thus it is only wise to seek immortality with everything at your disposal, letting nothing impede your way. Around you at all times are those who will never see what's coming. They do not desire it nor believe it, because they have shut the door on themselves and they are wandering in the dark. Protect yourself from becoming enveloped in their aura of deluded drunkenness, where every day for them is the same as the last, and they see it not that time draws nigh. What a waste. Judgment itself is taking place now. We are in 2012 at this moment because of the delay of the Gregorian calendar. Many have knowingly forfeited their chance to ascend, and thus they are like crabs in a bucket, pulling everyone else they can around them into the same prison they created for themselves. Beware of those who you know who are involved in some sort of dark occult practice. It is now time for the unseen hand or Dark Lord to exact recompense from them. They are now being used to betray even those they were closest to. Many of them did not expect this time to come and were lied to. They imagined a ritual game, a mere fraternity hazing. Now they have phantoms as their companions that fill their dreams with absurd visions. There is no rest for the wicked. A sorceress had done all the bidding for the Dark Lord and took pride in it. The Dark Lord promised her he would award her deeds in the underworld. With this promise, she worked more vigorously, causing division, setting traps for those who had found themselves in her web. On her untimely death, she was transferred to the underworld where the negative forces seized her and commenced to torturing her, pulling her soul apart. She cursed them profusely and demanded to speak with the ruler of the dominions who was watching from afar. When approaching, she said, "I have done everything you required of me, even more. I have sown discord with the peaceful and separated many from love and happiness. This I have done for you, and the reward you promised me. Where is it?" He said, "I lied. Did they not tell you I was the father of lies? I found more pleasure in betrayal than I do in honor. Think not my titles go without proof." And he waved his hand for his minions to commence as he watched. Reason 13. The Greek god Jupiter and his consort Juno. Indeed, this is not a planet. This is a man. Imposter. Obviously, not a god for daughters. Planets do something entirely different than impersonate themselves as men who have women. Nor do they ever appear. As will be made clear, what we are dealing with at times is interplanetary, extra-dimensional, highly intelligent space scum. One simply has to think that although some may perceive already that we are alone in this universe, which is profoundly untrue, if we blew up Earth, it would soon cause a chain of reaction of cataclysms for the entire galaxy. Thus, we have been governed by higher forces that oversee the timing of events so that crazy dictator doesn't slip in on the nuclear kill switch. There are principalities, rulers, forces, and dominions in place working out an entire larger scheme that makes Earth one of the more value subdued, not destroyed. Think of the loss of resources and biological data. Earth is a storehouse of genes working together well enough. For one moment, do not doubt all these genes are in cryotubes fully cataloged and ready to implant into other worlds, which is part of terraforming a planet and getting them prepared for higher life forms like me and you. Since we know that there are other beings with other senses, we can endeavor to obtain those senses also. This separates us from animals who seldomly openly enlist the help of humans. This also means that some have higher senses, have already discovered harmony and benefits of a collective mind, the power in numbers, the elements, etc. Thus, there is a place to go. It is entirely possible that the knowledge of how to alter an entire planetary frequency with just insects that also emit sound frequency is on the Orion arsenal of technology. This moves us further into the intelligence of beings who are more advanced in some ways than us. We could go so far in imagining what they have and what they can do, and we would be more than likely right. However, what is of value here is to show that they are not the creator of all things. They too had a creator. If we find ourselves in service, it should be to that only. They are no doubt involved in our evolution. There can be no question of it. Just as the wheel has saved us endless amounts of time and effort so we may travel further, faster. If these beings gave us TV, or should I say things like cathode ray tube and the integrated circuit, that's enough altering right there. Case closed. The way many beings feel about Earth is they should not give something that looks like dust compared to Antares or Betelgeuse the honor of destroying the whole galaxy. Everything must evolve in time, and for the segment of the human race, that time is long overdue. The lower dimension now awaits occupying the spot we are in now. Since the information vault is now open, you can gain a higher level of esoteric intelligence without being fully initiated. Thus, stuck in some lower dimension slave world ruled by jealous maniacs because you joined the wrong group chanting Namaste, Namesat. Some of the most valuable portions of this information has come from higher beings still reaching back to help along the children, which we all are. They gave no names, and they demanded no worship save the original Creator, in which all things will eventually have to face, and its patient shrouded within itself, majestic and wise. Many of the forces that have invisibly protected and guided the human race have long since ascended past the points where they can any longer interact with the earth because of contamination and its lack of pure ideas. Thus, there is a heavy need for new ethereal planetary workers, not golden age materialists. On the flip side, there are those working in the dark force who have kept the masses and its recent segment of time away from true wisdom. Their doctrine is to know, dare, will, and keep silent. One should understand their oath to keep silent. They are all around and they would never reveal their identity. Those who have read works like The Art of War and The Law of Seduction should get a general idea of how they operate in business, much less in the spiritual world. These particular books, written by Sun Tzu, along with the work of Machiavelli, such as The Prince, and various other shrewd titles, which are required reading for the upcoming business elite. In addition, they do not just read them, but they put into play the methods being elaborated upon, as if the world was only a giant chessboard with human pieces. Even now, this particular work which you hold in your hands is allowed to reach the mainstream, not because they could not easily stop it, but because it fulfills another one of the prophecies. Thus they cannot plug the loophole which has been made. Although they plan increasingly, the Most High is the greatest planner. Have you not noticed that the forces that seek to hinder always tell you what is to come in the future before it happens? Even in the Bible, there's always a solemn warning about the prophet before the destruction. This is, in fact, a law of the universe which exists so that all conscious beings on the planet may have a choice of whether they want to participate in the collective planned future of the planet, attempt to do something to prevent it, or emancipate themselves from it entirely, which is always an option. We do hold the master button in our personal earth life. If we want to really exit, we can make it happen. Some type of choice always clings to us. Our future is in the beautiful fractalized shape of a myriad of choices. As you see within the word planet, there is plan there, which we will call planned net 10, which means the end of one world, and of course many new worlds will begin after. Our status in the ungoverned worlds, which has much to do with our alkalides and milestones which we have crossed in our previous world of origin. This information always remains in our aura even if we are unaware of it. Think of yourself throughout the whole universe as someone who assisted your race in ascension. As all things are recorded, that's what the record will reflect once the deed is accomplished. Every action we make will always be contained somewhere. It determines what we are to face next on the various levels of action and reaction. It can always be accessed, cannot be erased, just balanced. If you were strong, did you protect the weak? If you were truly wise, did you share your knowledge to your best ability? If you possess wealth, did you distribute the goods committed on your charge? It was known that each segment of astrological time is controlled by a particular planet. That planet is responsible for emitting the energy which is necessary to accomplish what has to be done during that cycle. The universe can be looked at as a big clock on which the planets rotate positions as if on massive cogs. It's known that Mars was once in the position we are occupying now in the cosmos. They were the third planet with a lush surface, oceans, etc. What is left now after the wars is just their core, in which we still find war-torn life. Mars was 3 times larger than Earth, a sad story that was. The name Mars and Wars makes it not hard to piece together what happened on the scorched red planet known to be the Marshall Planet of this system. The planet was split into 2 warring factions that went on to a stage of war we would call biological nuclear. The effects were far-reaching, creating a ghost world of infected souls. Lemuria, in fact, means ghost world. A remnant of one of the Martian factions were sent to Earth just in case their race faced total oblivion. They are today known as the Zulu tribe of Ifrika. In their legends, you'll find the history of their advent from Mars. They were warriors. They have no shame in admitting this. The wars fought on Mars continue here on Earth between the 2 factions called Atlanteans and Lemurians. We find Shaka Zulu was one of the earliest African films introduced into our psyche for a reason that will be obvious later. The original Phoenicians were also of darker skin tone. It may be of value for you to start seeing these deities, gods, spirits, demons, as beings alien to you, because there are many of them that did not originate here on Earth. In ancient times, people had gained knowledge of this and began to emulate the movements of energy, stars, and planets, and thus became completely alienated from the people. This is also when the elitist regions of the chosen people began to flourish. Those who wished to be in power during the coming era would make pacts and oaths with spirit energies, and from there they would become fleshly vessels doing all the biddings of these rogues by declaring war on unbelieving infidels. Even the word peace means something that must be split up, and only a portion remains. The word unity also means unit or part, not the whole thing. We have grown so accustomed to these words we don't see that every time nations use it as a reason to go to war, we get exactly what we ask for, sending units to tear things to pieces. The world has now been divided into so many pieces, we will all become isolated from one another, and thus think our true enemy is our fellow man and women, and silently in the cabal rules one who's not human at all. I shall smite its face. These factions were often at war. They began through submission and then continued with religion. This brought about complete conversion of the captor. Those who became initiated into the dark brotherhood and sisterhood cults were taught the finer details of the spirit world and how it works. Vile beings in the realm of afterlife, betwixt dimensions, began hoarding the human souls after death. Other times we were made while living to go to physical war in the name of gods which only hurt us, fragile flesh us. This was forbidden times. Man was lost worshiping gods, stars, asteroids, moons, thus destiny was created. Just as you see in the story of Jesus, the Essenes, known then as the Magi, were following a star that indicated to them the birth of what they had been waiting for. You will find many sects of ancient men that follow stars. The Ishmaelite Arabs, along with the Egyptians, had extensive knowledge of such thing due to the clarity of the stars in the desert on a clear Arabian night. Of course, the knowledge of genius of the genie, which is jinn or jan, many of which are trapped in desert regions of the sand. Sand is glass. They were confined there, encased under sheets of it until men removed them from the bottle. They could, beyond doubt, prove that when a baby was born, a star appeared first, thus they had knowledge of when someone important was born. Reason 14. The Egyptians were given extensive star charts of animalistic nature in which they emulated. The priesthood itself was in such complexity that the people were made to dedicate every act of daily life to a separate star or deity, leaving little room for natural growth and unadulterated consciousness expansion. Subtly, this becomes another reason why we as people become servants of kings, queens, presidents, dictators, and icons who all follow the procession. I will not bore the reader with the tales that can be seen as myth in this primitive time with the futuristic coding that we live in. We will just dive right into things as they are now. This way you have little to research because it's all happening around you as you live the truth. The world has now become a very large version of the boy who crawled wolf. Now that the wolf is upon us, few believe that there even is such a thing. Many have come saying that they know what the future holds, only to disappoint those who felt foolish to believe them, and this has made many people wary of the warning and preparation. In this, I know you will find an energy that will arouse you once more. Listen, and I will instruct thee once more how to turn this language in thy favor. Gird thy comprehension, and fail not to seek understanding in these words. Humans have grown indeed complex, and have no simple answer for their troubles, so look not for something easy on the explanation. The time grows nigh, and many are at the end of their cycle, some raising to eternal beauty, and others to layers of retribution, sheets of fire in which they must be passed through with no end, miserable. If you say, I am saved, lo, you are in error. None can be sure. If you say, I will bow down now, nay, it will be impossible to stand up. It is wise to make haste in embedding your mind with exact knowledge beyond reproach, so you may position yourself to receive fair judgment as you have already been observed. The faithful will find these words sweet to their ears, while the faithless will be made to listen for their gin, even a way to seek to escape what has come, and it will most surely not delay past the appointed time. El, aka Saturn, aka Father Time for short, was the god known to rule the age of Aquarius, which we now find ourselves in again as of February 14th, 2009, Valentine's Day. The symbol of our Valentine's Day is the heart being pierced by an arrow. It is the esoteric symbolism of when our universe, known as Sagittarius Dwarf, will be passing through the heart of the Milky Way, crossing to the parallel universe B for a galactic lineup. At this very moment, while we were crossing the Great Divide and an opportunity has been proclaimed for eons, is taking place for those who are in the know. Reason 15. This is by far not the first Aquarian or Golden Age. In fact, this is only represents the time of a shift. The energy of the cosmos actually assists a person if they do a little seeking to find higher truth. Once that time passes, those who have not seized enlightenment will come around the cycle again after death, remembering little of what happened. The Golden Age movement was designed to get the whole world to rewind and relive a long past time. The most recent Golden Age in our history was the times of Hitler and Nazi Germany. The opportunity is the merging of collective minds and frequencies, allowing an individual to become the portal for higher essence and their higher purpose. Purpose equals energy. This other world is what we glimpse ourselves in at times while we are asleep or in a vision. In this world, everything appears as it really is, and there are few limits. One has higher senses, can fly through the ether, considers not time, and can make contact with multiple beings. Omnipresent and the art of being in more than one place at a time is possible in this parallel realm. Thus you can visit multiple people all in one moment. This is why it's easier to contact other beings while in lucid sleep, because the controllers do their best to keep us from being conscious while in that world, even more than they do in this one. We tend to watch our dreams rather than control them, as in society we have a tendency to take things as they come and react accordingly rather than getting directly involved with the big picture. On our third dimension, there are physical laws against omnipresence. Generally, you can only separate your body into two parts while on the third dimension. One of those two, when split, is basically a vegetable, the body. When lacking a soul, will appear limp with shallow life signs until the spirit re-empties it. The technique itself is not a natural gift, takes proper training, as Dr. Monroe revealed in his hemisphere synchronization techniques before the CIA gained control of his work and altered it. Or maybe he was the CIA all along, especially since his father was a known CIA agent. When you are lucid, riding the dream like a wave, you can call forth beings, and if you have the might to understand them, they will appear. Then you will see what they really are, and you will learn why many of them we should not be worshiping. Destruction is the main part of keeping up the chaos on Earth, and many of these beings are destroyers. Now that the Hindu pantheism is the preference for the New World Order, they have unleashed a whole retinue of destroyers like Shiva, Kali, Latch. They con the person by telling them to think they must be destroyed completely to be made new again as they dissolve into nothingness. They are instructed to chant and meditate on the destroyer, which is a awakening tool. This is no different than the nonsense like boiling frog's eyes in pigeon blood, which Agrippa used to recommend to Caesar. In the end, if these things could ever be positive, because it began in negativity. Kali is bedecked with several heads of victims she has destroyed. We will have to learn again how to judge with common sense and take things at face value. For many of us, our life is attached to time, and the clock is one of the most valuable tools in controlling the mind. The elite know there becomes no use in counting time unless you plan on it running out. Imagine in immortality and infinity someone actually counting their hours and minutes. Talk about useless. Saturn, also known as Kronos, which is where words like chronological and chronograph come from, was elected for time because of his rings, which signified, like an old tree, his length of time in the galaxy. In other words, those attempting to learn from the age of this universe looked first to Saturn and the debris and its rings containing residue of lost planets that entered Golden Age of destruction and chaos, now long forgotten, although their essence still remains. Reason 16. The stunning rings of Sat, rich with debris of forgotten planets, planets such as Maldek and Vulcan, are clearly seen on ancient star maps, but are now somehow gone. Some, I believe, are still in existence, others have left this galaxy, and some were destroyed in wars. The sign of Aquarius, or the Golden Age, bears witness with two wavy lines in which some say are the signs of water and others that of lightning bolts. Known as the Age of Man, the water being dumped out signifies the cleansing or deluge. The mystery of lightning was shown by shooting an electron in sterile water and watching as a single cell of life form appeared out of thin air in a portal, depending on your perspective. That showed us that life could be created from nowhere out of virtually nothing except energy. This, of course, destroys evolution theory. At this point, there are many beings leeching from the human race under many guises. Reason 17. The classic white bearded depiction of Saturn. Few on the outer circle have figured out that Saturn is affiliated with the serpent. Notice the larger serpent underneath Saturn's arm, not to mention what is happening to the child. They also refer to the bearded god as the great architect, though he destroys everything he builds. This is why Santa and the Wizard of Oz fit this motif. Reason 18. The Brotherhood of Saturn is in big service today, underpinning various organizations. Depicted below are the inner circle. The outer circle consists of all of the religious projects erected for global domination. This is Sat, Saturday, Satan, Santa, Satan, Saint, Satins, Sabbath, etc. Sir, Sar, Sir, and Sor are all names for the serpent energy. Ye shall know them by their works. Long before the Third Rite, Amun was worshipped as chief deity of many nations. The knowledge of Amun, being one of the largest planet in this solar system, was known since ancient times. You can see then why many wanted to find favor with Amun, since they believed it is the biggest. Thus, it was also the strongest. Again, it is the name changes that sometimes throw us off the trail, and that is, of course, if we have even decided to investigate what could be going on beyond the level of petty politics. Amen is also Pa, Thor, Jove, Pater, pronounced Potter. Reason 19. When you see the bearded depiction, you already know who is involved. George Lucas is a Saturn alien. Europa, a moon in Amen's orbit, is where Europe got her name from. This goddess from Crete, daughter of giant Sidon, set up a civilization where we now find Europe. Many of the beings were referred to as giants because in other civilization, their home planets were much bigger than Earth. It can be assumed that their height proportion in this conjunction with the size of their planet. Amen has 63 moons orbiting it, while we have only one, and that one moon has a lot of influence over the minds of our planetary inhabitants because of the magnetic energy. As will be seen more and more, humans are energy, and we have a magnetic core and poles, just the same as a planet, hence the term bipolar. To show a brief length, we will talk of another tool used against us, which is money. This is by far the most effective tool, so I will discuss its spirit origin. The money we now use is pauper. We are no longer really using currency made of metals, as you may have noticed. In the old days, if you had lots of silver or gold, you at least had the energy of these metals around you, and they carried certain types of strength that gave one certain spiritual advantages. Now we are on paper. Why? The main advert for this is the first pope, of which his parents were papists. The papist is the person who makes paper parchment. This magical art was known to be taught by one of the fallen angels and is discussed in the book of Enoch under cutting roots. Certain trees were blended together and formed into a parchment have a binding effect. This is the basis for the special paper a talisman must be inscribed on. When you look at the currency of the world, which has been revealed in the US $1 bill, you can see many magical symbols, especially stars, and even the magnetic strip give it power. The paper itself holds a binding energy that perpetuates our desire for it. This is one of the wicked things done by papacy by direction of esoteric knowledge of the Jesuits. Reason 20. While pretending to teach moderation and piety, the vice generates for the wicked one spew their poison of money, mammon, all over the earth. Few know of the Black Pope, which controls the Jesuit arm of the papacy. The money has become the stumbling block of the world. I've heard many say he is our Pope. Indeed, they will share his lot. To the left is an astral projection of the Pope. The use of the trees for magic has been their main tactic. Tree, 3, word, wood. Looking at our world today, one should not be surprised that destruction and chaos beyond preconceived proportion could be possibly looming in the future. We have the NWO Zionists who no longer wants money, only blood. The Anunnaki ship Nibiru, or Planet X, which can be seen from the South Pole, lazily head this direction. At the end of the 13-moon Mayan calendar, global warming beyond reversal, Antichrist in Las Vegas and India, Quetzalcoatl the Feather Serpent scheduling a tour, the proposed alien invasion warming our ships, the galactic lineup clicking into place, and a population doubling by 2012, and a host of other wild cards give us a jolt for the future. It is safe to say that maybe one should start tuning into the higher frequency and phone home just in case one of these things just happens, and maybe all of them at the same time. In any event, this book will serve to prepare the sincere while still making good read for the ever remaining skeptic, which I began as myself. It is better to think of this way, since the earth continues to be polluted and mistreated with no sign of massive reversal. We can move a step ahead and just come to the conclusion that all of this is happening to promote us to wake up from the smoldering and see what else is out there. We must connect with our other self then, with spirit newly mended. We can go to the next wavelength. With this formulation, we are now wholly prepared to be remembered. Everything we need being eternal. We are self-sufficient to move about the galaxy to meet new life which equals new experience. This ensures our proper growth and of course that we don't get bored in immortality, caught in infinite loops of Qlipoth. Just how long can we as a people really wake up every morning, battle traffic, suck fresh smog, get to work, give half of what we earn to fascists, come home, eat Codex Alimentarius infested food, and get digitally mind controlled by a flat screen, go to sleep, not remember our dreams, start over the next day? Come on, have you noticed that? For many, it seems like the movie Groundhog's Day. February 22nd, 33rd day of the year, and why are we taking this? There's something that has not been figured out, not because of a lack of intelligence, but rather the height of distraction. I personally believe that right now in your hands is what you need to get your perspective focused once again on the main picture. The census says our population will actually double by the year 2012. The reader should highly consider if the Earth can handle double the trouble that it is now. It is due time that the world change, and the same energy used to destroy for so long will now consume those who used it in vain, as they are consumed in the reflux current. The elite know there would be those who would come able to convert their negative energy they spewed upon us into positive. They tried to tell us it was only one, the anagram for Neo, that could do it is far from the truth. They feared and anticipated that the younger generation, who seemed to have a unique ability of converting bad into good, could catch on at some point and break the matrix. This term, the matrix, comes from the head of the Greek goddess pantheon, known as Mediatrix, of whom their descendants come from Media.